Hello everyone, this is part 19 of What If Naruto was born in the Uzumaki clan, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The despair he felt was the same as the one he had experienced when he had watched Azubi destroyed. The same when his people were killed in that forest of Konoha, the same when he learned of his father's death. Father, I could never recognize you as my son. But you are my B, and I'm proud to call you my child. The fading strength and courage in his body returned as he remembered just whose B ran in his veins. It was his honor that had led him to this peril, his desire to do the right thing that had placed everything he had built at risk, but he now knew it would be that honor itself that would get him out of this. He had to believe, he had to fight. Rise a guardian. Glancing around at his terrified and wounded supporters, he knew what had to be done. Understood that now was the time to truly become a Uzukage. All these people had trusted him to give them a better future. And he would forever let himself rot in hell than let them mess here. Orochimaru's sick twisted smile faded a little when his enemy didn't tremble nor run away. Instead the young Uzukage brought his sword forward and pointed it at the forms of Kiri's 7 ninja swordsmen, and his own transformed mother. The darkness came surging from the skies, taking the form of a demonic skull behind the boy's back. A dark flash. The redhead boy now standing behind the swordsman with a very familiar 3-pronged kunai. It can't be. As Raiga collapsed and sunk into the sea, the rest of his swordsman brothers and sisters saw another dark flash happen before their eyes, followed by Aomori Ringo's head flying off. Impossible, yelled Orochimaru furiously. Yet it was his happening right before his very eyes. The famed Harasshan technique being born again, in the body of a boy who was Minato's own F&B. How? When? Why? So many questions were floating in Orochimaru's panicked mind as he watched Konoha's most dangerous jutsu be used by this young boy who had already K2 Kiri ninja swordsman on his own. Another scream as Mangetsu Hozuki got his heart out, brutally leaving only 4 of Kiri's best swordsmen in the field. That was enough to startle Jiraiya, who ran to stop the monstrous boy. But soon it got in the way. BP. Yet Orochimaru had to calm down. It was impossible for anybody to learn the Harasshan so fast, no matter if it was Minato's own son. But he had that 3-pronged kunai, and his flashes were dark but just as fast as his father's. Already many Kiri shinobi had started to flee after watching 3 of the greatest warriors in seconds. If something was not done to stop that monster, a disaster would befall on their fragile coalition. Danzo had paid quite a lot of gold to the Uzukage for this alliance, and that old crook would have Orochimaru's head if he failed in his mission. Bring me the boy's head and his mother back to this Konoha in chains. So Orochimaru waited and watched. The remaining Kiri swordsmen were now putting up a brave fight, but not fast enough to avoid being wounded by the boy's speed. However, the boy had suffered a few wounds himself and his own B spilled across the sea. And that gave it all away. Orochimaru was momentarily stunned by the boy's cleverness and his deception. But then again, he was an A. Whenever he reappears, the dark chakra concealing his body vanishes. But after that attack he shrouds himself again and uses his natural speed to reach his next target. He is just as fast as his father, but that is no Harasshan. We cannot detect his deception, for we are too paralyzed of our own fear of the Harasshan jutsu. Using our own fear to manipulate our senses to make us see what he wants us to see. Magnificent, thought Orochimaru with a smile. Whatever jutsu the boy was performing seemed to be working. For the Uzumaki and Akatsuki forces that had been paralyzed by fear on seeing Kushina transform were now trying to get back in the fight. Orochimaru's plan might have not worked as he had planned, but he could still make it work. The boy still had a weakness. He raised his finger, hearing the beastly Jinchuriki growl right before charging madly towards the Uzumaki forces. Orochimaru sickly smiled as he heard the boy yell in horror, and that momentary slip in battle earned him a blade through the ribs courtesy of Kushimaru. The Kiri ninja's needle-like blade must have been laced with S-poison as Naruto flinched and coughed B. Meanwhile, Kushina had started to tear apart ranks upon ranks of Akatsuki forces easily. Within minutes, the mad beast would end the battle. The remaining Kiri swordsmen closed in to finish the boy when he was vulnerable, but were interrupted as the boy's giant white wolf jumped in to save its master. The sight of the beast momentarily stopped the swordsmen, for they had never seen a creature like this before. "I'll handle him," declared Orochimaru. The wolf surprisingly turned towards him, displaying a rare bit of sentience. The fact that it could stand on sea showed it was no ordinary animal but one which could use chakra to an extent. Yet it was creature, just bigger and with more sharp teeth. Orochimaru dashed forward, Kusanagi ready to tear the beast apart. He didn't realize when he was tumbling to his knees, clutching his ears, as a horrible ringing sound made his brain explode painfully. Through his hazy vision, he saw the great wolf howling. Sound waves. Using his surprise attack, the wolf had brought Orochimaru to a temporary halt, and on seeing his prey weakened, the wolf charged. The Konoha ninja brought his poisoned sword up to defend himself, but he was not fast enough, still suffering from the pain in his head. Orochimaru fought back a scream as the giant wolf s his sharp teeth in his Achilles tendon. Pain, so horrible the likes of which Orochimaru had never experienced in his life, tore through his body as the beast tore apart the weakest part of his feet. He screamed. Rising anger and adrenaline allowed him to swing his sword furiously, lashing a deep C on the wolf's back. The creature howled in pain as its white fur was soaked in its own bee. It again tried to harm its prey but was rewarded another sharp C on one of his hind legs. The wolf limped away whining painfully, and Orochimaru moved forward to finish the wretched animal. And met with a bone-crushing fist to the jaw courtesy of Naruto Uzumaki, who jumped in the way. Orochimaru was sent crashing away but quickly flipped and regained his footing. He spat and saw 3 of his teeth coming out with his bee and disappearing into the sea water. The boy Cage was kneeling beside his wounded beast partner and miserably trying to stop the bee. Orochimaru would have laughed at the runt's misery if he had not seen the transformed Kushina being trapped in a sealed barrier courtesy of Arima and the remaining Uzumaki. The clan's warriors had finally displayed their strongest skill, and Kushina in her beastly form was trying to tear apart the barrier with devastating attacks. The disorganized and crumbling Akatsuki forces were rallying behind a savage-like warrior who was apart Kiri shinobis with his monstrous scythe, all the while cheering for his dark lord. Jiraiya and Tsunade were still engaging each other in a battle. Orochimaru searched for the remaining Kiri ninja swordsmen. Last time he had seen them, there were 4 of them still alive, and Kushimaru had injured the boy. Moments later, the Konoha ninja found that same demon warrior S and floating on the sea. The rest of the great ninja swordsmen fleeing. Orochimaru couldn't hide his disbelief on what he saw. Right before his very eyes, the Kiri ships were turning around ready to flee on the commands of their remaining great swordsmen. Glancing across the battlefield, the once superior allied force he had gathered was crumbling. Money and greed. Those were the 2 factors that had brought them together, unlike their enemies who firmly believed in their leader and were willing to follow him to death. And Naruto Uzumaki had displayed his power and leadership when the time was dire. He had stood up for his people, used his skills to do what was necessary, and now the tide was turning. No. He quickly formed 2 shadow clones and sent them running towards Naruto, who was trying to save his wolf beast. Tsukumo. The White Fang S and Akatsuki soldiers head apart with his silvery blade and turned towards Orochimaru. "There is the boy who K your son. Keep him engaged, K him if you can while I free Kushina," commanded Orochimaru. It was said that grief and hatred always make the greatest warriors blind. The same was the case for Tsukumo Hatake, who had lost his only son and last family because of Naruto Uzumaki. And so the White Fang charged. Tsunade yelled a warning to the boy, alerting him at the last second, thereby saving his life as Tsukumo's blade missed its target by an inch. Orochimaru smiled and ran to free the only monster that could turn this losing battle in his favor. An annoyed frown came on his face when the few Uzumaki warriors stood before him under the leadership of a man who had the look of a noble of Uzu. "Kikuku, who might you be, my lord?" asked Orochimaru slyly. "You talk too much even for a coward," replied Lord Arima. The smile vanished from Orochimaru's face and the monstrous yellow eyes glared down at the Uzumaki group. Bringing forth his Kusanagi, the Konoha ninja was satisfied when at least the Uzumaki who had just spoken flinched. "So, he knows what blade this is. Ready to s?" asked Orochimaru with a hint of madness in his eyes. Arima unleashed his twin swords, making the rest of his redhead clansmen raise their weapons. Naruto stared at the man in front of him. Stark white hair, a face that could be passed as kind and gentle but now marred in hatred and pain. A well-muscled body and strong arms that currently held a glowing white sword emitting powerful white chakra. Even he knew who this man was. Tsukumo Hatake, the White Fang. It's an honor to meet you, said the Uzukage, even as he watched one of his men carry away the wounded wolf away to the beach. Ghost was badly wounded while defending his life, and Naruto could only pray to the gods to keep his beast alive. The tide of this battle was turning in his favor and he had already the two Orochimaru clones that tried to kill him. Yet the man standing before him now was not someone he could take lightly. You killed my son, said Tsukumo, his voice devoid of any mercy. I did. And your people killed mine. It's war, Tsukumo-san, replied Naruto without remorse, earning a grim look from the elder man. You could have tried to talk to Hiruzen before you attacked Kagami's camp and killed my son as well as the others, said Tsukumo bitterly. Naruto stared in this man's eyes and saw only pain left in them. He had heard great tales about this warrior, an honorable man, and a loyal soldier of his village. It doesn't matter anymore. We are enemies now and will remain so until one of our villages is utterly destroyed. I will do my duty, I suggest you do the same. Tsukumo stared at him for a very long moment and Naruto stared right back. Fight well, boy. Naruto barely managed to bring up his sword, eliciting bright sparks as Tsukumo's short blade struck. The White Fang proved his reputation when he pushed, making Naruto fall to one knee, unable to counter the elder man's superior strength. Before the Uzukage could ignite the flames of hellfire on his sword, he felt a jolt of lightning strike against his feet muscles courtesy of the lightning sparks flying from Tsukumo's remaining free hand. With a quick move, Tsukumo made his opponent lose his only weapon and moved to give the K blow. But Naruto flipped away gracefully and created distance between them. Tsukumo hadn't wasted any time and had already finished his next move. Suten, Tsuruyaden no Jutsu, water release, great water dragons. Naruto reacted instantly and focused his mind power. He could feel the three monstrous water dragons of Tsukumo charging towards him, and in return he created a monstrous wave of water. Pushing the water hard, he sent it crashing into the dragon trio, earning a monstrous shower of water that drenched the entire area. He didn't get any respite as he saw dozens of fireballs flying towards him and had to dodge them with great speed. Shrouding himself in dark chakra, he masked himself from the enemy's sight and stealthily approached towards him. Tsukumo was still, his eyes searching for his opponent as Naruto crept behind his back. He was definitely not prepared for the elder man to whirl around and deliver a devastating horizontal S. Naruto screamed as the white chakra blade S him from the left shoulder to the legs, taking away large chunks of F and B. His armor could not even offer a minute defense to that powerful weapon. He crashed away again, creating distance between them even as Tsukumo stared at him almost sadly. The pain in his young body was unbelievable, as if some divine energy was clashing against the dark chakra in his veins. It was that sword. Dawn is a chakra sword that draws its power from a person's yang chakra. The purest form of all energy, a stark contrast to the yin chakra that is strong within your body. Those two powers are clashing against each other and the pain must be unbelievable, explained Tsukumo almost sympathetically. Naruto coughed a lot of B and fought back another painful scream. He felt as if someone was burning him alive from within, turning his innards to ashes. His wounds were not healing anymore and B oozed out of his body at alarming pace. How did you see me? He asked painfully. He was so sure no man except for a Hyuga could see him when he shrouded himself in dark chakra. Tsukumo again proved himself to be a kind man and an honorable warrior as he answered. I can smell your B, boy. Hide in the shadows all you want, but I have prepared for this moment for months. It brings me no joy to take your life, and neither would it bring my son back. But I must avenge Kakashi and destroy you so that Konoha can live. Get up and S on your feet, ordered the White Fang. With great effort, Naruto got back on his feet. The pain was still there, his B and F still falling into the sea, his vision still hazy, his hands shaking with the effort of holding his sword. Across the battlefield, the enemy army was almost on the verge of defeat. Hundreds were many more wounded, and dozens were fleeing with the remaining Kiri forces on those retreating ships. Yet it was not yet over. Jiraiya was still here. Orochimaru was fighting against Arima and he saw most of the Uzumaki were His mother was still trapped in that barrier, her beastly form trying to get out while giving monstrous cries. Ghost was wounded badly just to save Naruto's own wretched life. So many mistakes he had made, so many flaws in his war strategy that had led him to this point. He was neither invincible or unbeatable, only a young boy. A boy with a dream. You will not enjoy your leadership, but you must find the strength to do what needs to be done. Mother, Lord Fourth, the clan, you have my dream. Hanzo, show me your revolution. Kiss him. I don't care if he's a bastard. Nagato, I'm with you, now and always. Akano, be the man you were meant to be. Conan, rise a guardian. Katsuro. Tsukumo's eyes slightly widened when the wounded boy nearly on death's door stood up again. There was determination and a desire to win in his eyes. A fighter, he was until the end. The White Fang raised his glowing white sword and charged. Lord Fourth did the same with his long sword burning in dark green flames. A thunderous explosion fell across the sea when the two warriors clashed, sending debris, and chunks of water flying away. He bit back the sudden pain and tried to take the boy's head with a swift strike, but Naruto was faster and ducked. Naruto saw Tsukumo create distance between them again. I cannot beat him in an open battle. He is stronger. So, he s his flaming sword into the sea, making thick steam rise in the area. Soon enough the surrounding area was shrouded in steam and only their senses were able to function. Naruto with his sharp hearing, and Tsukumo with his nose. Many times they clashed in the mist, exchanging swords and wounding each other further. Tsukumo's wounds increased, for his opponent was faster and struck many blows whenever an opportunity rose, but Naruto suffered more deep wounds, for the elder man was stronger and They continued this dance for several minutes, wounding each other, then creating distance, hunting again, and fighting once more. When the dance was about to start again, Naruto had to jump back as a pack of ninja dogs jumped towards him. His burning sword danced, striking down the dogs mercilessly, but that gave the enemy the required time, and the very next second a monstrous roar bellowed across the sea. The steam disappeared and Naruto saw Tsukumo standing on top of a giant brown-colored three-headed dog. The creature was almost as big as a giant and was snarling at him. Naruto stumbled back at the sight of the monster and knew right there Tsukumo had taken this battle to another scale. And the Uzumaki didn't have a summon, his only battle partner having already been wounded by Orochimaru. Focus. He heard Conan repeating that command in his mind and decided to do the same. All his life he was never a ninja who triumphed with sheer raw power, but instead he had other talents. Tsukumo, who was sitting atop his summon, made the three-headed dog charge towards his opponent. Naruto remained still, his eyes closed, his left hand outstretched forward. Searching deep, he allowed himself to become one with the charging beast. Felt its anger, its rage, let it wash over and become one with his own body. Soon he was staring at himself standing on the sea, and realized he was seeing this through the dog's eyes. The beast had stopped. Naruto could feel the sentient creature struggling against this invasion of the mind, tried to overcome it with all the rage and hatred it could muster. But the more it tried those emotions, the more Naruto's own anger and hatred grew stronger. Remembering Konoha's betrayal again. Remembering Orochimaru's twisted smile. Remembering Jiraiya turning against him. Remembering the sight of his mother forced to turn into that monster. Beast against man. And the man won. Tsukumo was thrown off his summons back and fell down into the sea with shock clearly etched across his face. The White Fang's horror didn't end there, as the next second he saw his own summon lunge for him, grabbing him in its mighty claws. The last thing the White Fang saw was his own battle partner betraying him in the worst manner. With its master and summoner by its own hands, the power holding the summoned dog into this realm vanished. And with it, the ashamed creature vanished to its own realm, but not before giving one last hateful glare at the man who had made it commit such horrible treason. Naruto collapsed to his knees and vomited and whatever other contents remaining in his stomach. The horror and revulsion passed through his entire body, making him shiver as he could still feel the distant taste of human on his tongue. What he had done. He had never shied away from in fact had to embrace it because of his training as an He had men and women in horrible ways, but this. Fighting back his shame and horror, he decided to continue forward. He was already damned for hell, and had to do what was necessary for his survival and his people's as well. There was no way he could defeat Tsukumo with sheer power, not in such a wounded state. It was done. Now he had to get his mother back, had to get up. But he was so weak, the desire to just sleep sounded so inviting. And then he heard a woman's scream. Fighting back against the pain, he stumbled towards the direction he had heard the voice come from. Had to get there, had to save her. The battlefield had grown deathly silent, full of so many belonging to different sides. He grimaced when he found his Uzumaki guards lying in the water, but Lord Arima was nowhere in sight. The enemy forces were either S or had run away. Yet his own army was as well. Hidden's chopped remains floating in a corner with dozens of Kiribi, but his head was nowhere in sight. Possibly drowned. Finally, he saw distant silhouettes of people boarding the last ship in the area. A Konoha ship. Stop. He ran towards the redhead woman bound in chains, had to save her. Promise me. I promise, father. But his legs finally gave out and he collapsed on all fours in the water. Hazily, he watched his terrified mother begging as a man started limping towards him. Naruto. Get up. Run. Please. Please. He hazily remembered rising to his knees, catching a glimpse of her mother. A shadow passed between them and the next second his world exploded in unbearable pain. Looking down, he saw a sword buried in his sea and looked up to see Orochimaru smiling at him. Farewell, Lord Fourth. He wrenched the sword mercilessly out of Naruto's sea as Kushina screamed, but Jiraiya held her back. Naruto tried to reach for his sword as he watched Orochimaru raise his weapon again to deliver the decisive blow. Beheading, a fitting end for a bastard. Naruto tried to search for his sword to defend himself. But he had lost his sword in his haste to reach Kushina. Tears arrived in his eyes, for he had failed everyone. And could feel death knocking at his door. Forgive me. He lowered his head, utterly spent and wounded, and could feel Orochimaru laugh as he brought his sword downwards. Heard weapon followed by a scream. But it was not his own. With his last strength he looked up to see it was Orochimaru screaming in agony as his sword fell into the sea. His right hand cleaved away completely by Lord Arima standing behind the Konoha ninja. Orochimaru snarled madly and tried to attack the Uzumaki Lord, but Arima ducked a seal on his enemy's body and kicked him away. Naruto fell flat on the seawater and with his fading vision watched the sea come alive and engulf Orochimaru in bright green flames. Hellfire. Distantly, he saw Jiraiya rushing forward to help his now burning friend, Kushina screaming for her fading son, but it was all getting darker and darker. So, this was how felt like. Another shadow loomed over him again, but it was a familiar redhead man. Severely wounded himself but alive, and staring at him with horror, grief, panic but determination as well. Lord Fourth, yelled Arima. Mother, have to save her. Arima watched him with pity and then glanced back in the direction of the fleeting ship. The gone, son. Whatever strength that was left in Naruto's body vanished on hearing those words. He had failed again and there was nothing left for him but He regained his senses a little on feeling that pain on his cheek and saw Arima staring at him with the same fierce look of a stubborn Uzumaki. You don't get to like this. Not after showing our clan, our village, my family, and me a dream. I have already lost one cage, I will not lose another. Promised Lord Arima, earning a sad smile from the wounded boy. I failed everyone. Arima grimaced on hearing the despair in the boy's voice. One glance at his horrible wounds made the Lord flinch. No man should be alive in such a state. Yet this stubborn boy refused to Then get up and fail again and again until you succeed. That is our way, Uzumaki, don't quit, scolded Arima, even as he lifted the boy in his arms and started carrying him towards the shore where Castle Storm stood. Naruto faintly smiled on that remark and saw a blonde shadow waiting at the beach. You remind me of her. Akeno, he whispered. Arima didn't stop running towards the shore, but his breath hitched for a second on the mention of his child. Lord Fourth, you must live. Not just for our clan and for our justice, but also because I need your help in bringing my lost daughter home. Need her to know she still has her blood family left in this world, requested Arima. After watching what happened here, he had to bring her home. Couldn't afford for Akeno to stay out there in this dangerous world. But there was a sudden silence in the air that made Arima's heart stop. Lord Fourth. 1 week later, the fourth Hokage. Shimura Danzo had always known this prestigious and noble lord would one day be his. That one day he would rise and make his great nation rise to the top of this world. Had waited decades for this day to come and shed rivers of beef for that. So many friends, comrades, subordinates, enemies had to rest for Danzo to reach here. His best and oldest friend Hiruzen being the last. In a way, he respected the man even if he killed him. Hiruzen was a good man, an honorable man under whom Konoha had prospered. But it would never become the power it was meant to be, for Hiruzen was too peaceful. If only Tobirama had chosen Danzo. Yet that was all in the past, for he was Hokage now. Not by choice of the people, but because he had seized power. His tale of an K-Lord III had been accepted by many in this time of war. Those who were skeptical or opposed to the elders and the fire daimyo reluctantly choosing daimyo had been sent to fight the battle against a staunch enemy. The White Wolf, an interesting name for one so young. But the boy had made the most crucial mistake, punishable only by death in this world of power and ambition. Honor. Danzo detested this stupid notion more than he hated stupid people. Such a vague feeling that made people believe that they were superior to others, that by being honorable they were doing a great service to the world, while in truth they were just shooting themselves in the foot. All his life Danzo had seen such men decay very early in their lives. Honor is the first casualty of war. Danzo's own father, his uncle and his brothers, Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, and Hiruzen Sarutobi. They all had been killed when they tried to do the honorable thing. The White Wolf was the same, and he had paid for that with his life. Turning around he faced another such fool, but it was also true he needed this man's power in the coming battles. Report, ordered Danzo coldly. He could see Jiraiya still not able to accept Danzo as Hokage, but he was loyal and knew he served the village and not one man. He fell in line. Our coalition attacked as planned, but the White Wolf had his own army hidden on the island. It was smaller but there to ambush our delegation if it had arrived, said Jiraiya bitterly. Perhaps the Uzumaki boy was not that much of a fool, thought Danzo a little surprised. Go on. He fought bravely and his army followed him. Despite being outnumbered, he killed 4 of Kiri's 7 ninja swordsmen, dozens of our army, and Keisakumo as well, answered Jiraiya, the last part said with great remorse. Danzo's patience was the only thing that kept him from lashing out at this man for such a failure. He had given these young fools a larger army, an entire fleet, and yet they failed so disastrously. Jiraiya must have sensed Danzo's rising anger as he quickly explained the rest. Soon it turned against us, believing we should strive for peace with the Uzumaki and not war. She will pay for that, spat Danzo bitterly, while he would not kill a fully fertile Senju when there were hardly any left in Konoha. He would make Tsunade's life a living hell, make her deliver healthy Senju babies and then are her for treason against the nation. Jiraiya wanted to argue and even tried to, but Danzo gave him a stone-cold glare. Did you kill her? Asked Danzo icily. I couldn't. Then you are a bigger fool than I thought. But if you want me to spare her life, serve me loyally and help me crush all our enemies, demanded Danzo. The backing of Hiruzen's favored student would do well in earning Danzo the acceptance of some others who were still reluctant. He could see Jiraiya would rather drown than accept Danzo as Hokage, but he loved that blonde and foolish Senju. Love. Another foolish chemical reaction that made men and women do stupid things. All that should matter to every person was duty towards nation above all else. But not many shared this belief, and so it was up to Danzo to make them see that. He had to keep his anger in check even more as Jiraiya told him of how their army suffered disastrous casualties, with the rest fleeing like cowards. How Orochimaru had managed to kill the White Wolf but had gotten severely injured and was hanging between life and death right now. The only good thing was the fact that Kushina was brought back to the village as a prisoner. The White Wolf's, his people and village left leaderless. One less problem and enemy for Danzo to worry about. Gather few of the officers who allowed our forces to run like cowards. But, he gave the young man a stone-cold look that made him flinch. For all his power and chivalry, Jiraiya was a youngster and those could be molded. Let it be known that no Konoha ninja can retreat or run until ordered to do so. Go. Jiraiya reluctantly left as Danzo summoned another one of his root agents from the shadows. He took out a written scroll from his drawer and passed it to the man. The White Wolf is his armies currently warring in Kumo unaware of his demise. Take a company of our agents and put those redhead wretches of Azu in the graves once and for all. Bring me a few infants if you can, the rest, ordered Danzo. Yes, Hokage-sama, replied the Anbu dutifully, before vanishing to carry out his orders. Danzo smiled on hearing that term being addressed to him. His plans might not have worked exactly as he wanted, but his enemies were falling. The White Wolf was the one who started this war perhaps. He may have fallen, but his trusted comrades were a threat Danzo had to silence. He again took out the scroll that had arrived just this morning from a very interested party who shared Danzo's beliefs of power to an extent. His root agents would burn Azu to the ground, but there was another target that had been crucial for the White Wolf's success so far. And soon it would too join the boy in the grave. The world shall now truly fear Konoha, for a lion had taken charge and he wanted rivers of B. Akeno raced down the broken muddy roads of Omegakure on her horse. The rains were fiercer than ever, as if the heavens were themselves were crying. And so was she. The news that had reached them was the most terrible one of her entire life. It had broken her heart into millions of pieces, made her want to do something else, for all her dreams were destroyed. The White Wolf was S. There had been such dangerous rumors floating everywhere the past entire week, but she refused to believe them. However, when the news of Kushina Uzumaki being dragged in chains to Konoha reached her, she knew it was true. Naruto was S. She knew her childhood friend, the boy she loved, knew he would never let Kushina to be taken unless he was S. She had lost him, and now she was on the verge of losing another close to her heart. Nagato, stop, she yelled desperately, to the wild redhead boy racing ahead on his horse. She fought back her falling tears and galloped her horse faster towards her enraged best friend as he madly charged towards the direction of Konoha's border. Nagato had taken the news of his friend, who was more of a brother to him, even badly than Akeno. He had not uttered a word, but if the look in his eyes was any indication, he was about to do something reckless. And he was well on his way to his own death in all that rage. And she had to stop him. Couldn't lose her only other friend to his madness. The gods must have finally heard her desperate prayers as Nagato's horse stumbled as it got stuck in a pothole, making its rider go crashing to the ground. She halted her own horse and got down, but Nagato was already getting back on his feet, determined to charge on foot. Akeno jumped on him and held him fiercely in her grasp as he desperately tried to get free. He used his might, tried to headbutt her, even tried to punch her brutally, but she evaded his angry attacks and held him. He kicked and screamed obscenities at her. Kind and gentle Nagato, who had always looked after his friends, was now promising to her if she didn't let go. But she held him. His attacks became weaker and weaker until they were nothing more than a wounded child's blows. He slumped in her sea and gave an agonizing scream that tore through her heart as she tried to console him. He sobbed and sobbed like a man who had lost everything. And he had, for Akeno knew how much Nagato loved and respected Naruto, how much he believed in Naruto and his dream. Naruto was Nagato's dream. And now he was gone. Quote. He was whispering so many dangerous and inhuman thoughts, but she knew he was in unbearable pain. Akeno herself felt broken, but knew she had to be strong. Had to protect Nagato, certainly after that Akatsuki messenger had delivered Naruto's last orders for them. She finally managed to get him to calm down, and he looked at her with a gaze that promised nothing but pain for the ones who took away their friend. Getting him to walk towards a tree, she finally took out the scroll and he gasped in shock as well as pain, for it was from Azu. With Naruto's seal. Trembling, Akeno looked at him, and with a haunted gaze he understood. He knelt as Akeno took out her sword and placed it on his shoulder. Nagato Uzumaki, on the order of Lord 4th, Naruto Uzumaki, I hereby name you Lord 5th. Protector of Uzushiogakure. She read the epithet and final message Naruto had left for his friend and future successor. A final jest which brought tears to Akeno's eyes again. Protect our people, young wolf. Nagato was heartbroken, but no more tears fell from his eyes. The haunted gaze of the boy soon transformed into a determined glare as he clenched his fists. There was something feral about his look, exactly like the young wolf name given to him. There was no mercy or hesitation in those eyes, but only one desire. Salamander Hanzo watched with a tense gaze as thousands of armed warriors knelt before a young boy and pledged their lives to him. A boy who had never dreamed of power but was now ascending to it nonetheless. Lord 5th, the young wolf. Nagato Uzumaki stood amidst the amassed army, watching men call him such names he had never dreamed of in his entire life. Yet he was rising to the challenge, a fire in those young eyes as he rallied the fractured coalition soldiers. Having tendered his resignation just a few hours ago, the new Uzumaki had assured Hanzo that their alliance would remain intact. Yet the boy was marching south straight towards Konoha with the 2,000-strong Akatsuki army behind him. If rumors were to be believed, the new Uzumaki would have more of those soldiers joining his cause. Hanzo had reluctantly accepted Nagato's resignation as an ninja. With Naruto's and having named Nagato heir, it had left Hanzo little choice if he was to preserve this alliance between their two villages. It's all falling apart, whispered Galatea sadly. Naruto Uzumaki was the magnet holding this coalition together. With him, I doubt we'll receive much help from our allies despite Nagato's reassurances. The boy may be the new Uzumaki, but is just as hot-headed and be like his clan. No matter the size of his army, if he makes a mistake he'll get butchered just like the White Wolf, pointed Mifune bitterly. I don't believe Lord Fourth is S. The two advisors turned towards their leader, quite surprised to hear him say that despite all the evidence pointing the opposite. Hanzo. Mifune's protest was silenced by the fierce look that arrived in his leader's eyes. A reminder of the power of this man. Until I see his body with my own eyes, I won't believe it. This is a world war and misinformation is flying left and right. Send a messenger to Castle Storm to ascertain the truth, ordered Hanzo. At once, Hanzo-sama, replied Galatea dutifully, a fire burning in her own eyes for how the enemies had her clansmen. Again, when she was gone, Mifune stared as Nagato rallied the troops with Akano right beside him. The last of Lord Fourth's remaining legacy. They are children playing at war, Hanzo, said Mifune worriedly. Surprisingly, Hanzo agreed with a nod. That they are. Nagato's retribution will be swift and merciless, and unlike his predecessor he seems to have forsaken honor. But the young wolf, an apt name for a boy of 14, is a boy. Danzo Shimura may be a monster, but he is an experienced war commander. That is why Mifune, you must go with them. The samurai leader whirled towards his old friend and comrade in shock. Iwa was preparing for a war against and Hanzo was asking him to abandon the nation they built. Hanzo must have seen Mifune's betrayed look as he again looked at Nagato. Like it or not, we need the Akatsuki's strength. An army who has now sworn fealty to Nagato. Our greatest mistake was leaving Naruto alone without staunch supporters and advisors to guide him, and it has nearly destroyed everything. You must not let the young wolf BK, help him get some B to satisfy his thirst for revenge, but get him back here in time when Iwa strikes. Do you understand, Mifune? Asked Hanzo seriously. Mifune stared at Nagato for a long moment. He had the same bright red hair, fair skin and fiery temper his clan was famous for. The Uzumaki were one of the few noble clans in the world despite their recent dark actions that earned them the wrath of 3 great hidden villages. The samurai leader had actually started liking Naruto Uzumaki after he became Lord Fourth, for the young boy had started to develop into an honorable shinobi who wanted peace. A rare gem in such a twisted world, and he had been butchered too soon. As stubborn as he was to admit, he had grown fond of these Uzumaki. They were an interesting lot that closely valued family above all else, and as he watched the remaining Uzumaki children within flock to Nagato, he was truly saddened. These children, no matter how young, had been enraged on hearing the news of Naruto's they had not forgotten the aloof but caring boy who had risked his life and so much to save their lives and get him to To discover he was K had broken what little innocence left in them. And now each and every one of them, right from the youngest girl who was barely 7 to the oldest boy of 12, were kneeling around Nagato promising him their lives in order to revenge their fallen leader. A pack of wolves, indeed. They were hurt and angered, young and reckless, but Mifune could truly see how much they cared for the boy who had saved them. Nagato himself was not much older, a boy of 14 who had seen his share of butchery and treachery, had even participated in dangerous missions, but could he shoulder the burden left on his young shoulders alone? Could he fill the long shadow the White Wolf had left behind? Protect them. He could still hear Naruto's last words to them, granted they were said to Hanzo, but Mifune had heard them nonetheless. I'll protect them, promised Mifune, if not for anything else than for the honorable Lord Fourth who had lost his life doing the right thing. Hanzo would have given his blessing, but his words were short as a messenger burst into the chambers without permission and sprinted towards his leader. The panicked look on the young man's face didn't bode well. Hanzo took the offered scroll and read the message. If possible, Mifune saw for the first time his leader being a little unnerved. He passed the scroll to Mifune, and as he read the hastily written message his heart stopped. They are coming. Konoha's entire army and that of the fire daimyos are marching towards us. They'll be here within a week. Horror-struck Mifune stared at his leader grimly, understanding the apocalypse that was marching towards their nation. Konoha had thousands of veteran shinobi and combined that with that of the fire daimyo's troops. An invasion, finished Hanzo. Mifune was about to speak but saw a crow arrive inside the room and settling on Hanzo's offered hand. A crow they had given to Kyusuke for communication. Hanzo wasted no time in taking out the attached scroll from the bird's leg and opened it. This time he paled. Iwa has launched their invasion. Their armies have already started attacking Takagakure and Kusagakure. Those small villages will fall in days. Am is next, read Hanzo gravely. Mifune took a step back, unable to contain his shock. Two great nations attacking smaller villages with their full might at the same time. Hanzo. Omegakure's leader glanced at his small but developing village and felt fear for the first time in decades as he spoke. They have united, Konoha and Iwa. As absurd as it sounds, those two have found a common goal in the form of ambition, greed, and a common enemy. If Taki, Kusa, and Am fall, then those two increase their power substantially and are in a position to attack the weak sooner together. They might hate each other and even war again in the future, but for now they are out for RB, explained Hanzo worriedly. If only Naruto Uzumaki was here, muttered the till now silent messenger, earning a sharp glare from his leader which made him tremble. He is not, and outnumbered or not, we will defend Am to the last men. Mifune, take Nagato and the Akatsuki forces to battle against Konoha forces. I shall take command of our villages, ninjas and samurais and head north to face Iwa, ordered Hanzo. Will it enough, old friend? Asked Mifune silently. No. Hanzo had never shied away from the truth, and he wasn't about to start now. Never could he have imagined such disastrous consequences following his nation. They had underestimated Danzo Shimura. The old lion had waited for this opportunity all his life, and he was willing to do anything, take any risk to achieve his ambitions. Sungakure would dare not attack Konoha while it ravaged Am. Instead, the Sand Warriors and their leader would use this time to prepare for the inevitable assault of two great nations they might face in the future. Omegakure was all alone. Their only loyal ally either or at best wounded and missing. Yet they had a duty to perform. Prepare the men. We march for war. Konan stumbled, the scroll falling from her hands alongside her tears as she finished reading the heartbreaking news from Azu. He couldn't BS. Yet the message had said it was true. Lord Fourth had fallen in battle against Konoha forces. The young leader being betrayed, and she remembered the annoying yet mysterious redhead boy. Had gone from loathing him to respecting him, went from being disinterested to deeply caring for his well-being. Remembered his dreams for their nations and the world, the way he smiled when he mentioned those dreams. The way he cared for the ones he loved. The way he had believed in her and all their friends. Daibatsu numbly stared as Konan's gaze turned M. He had already accomplished his own mission of sacking and burning Kobe to the ground. From there he had marched further, destroying another target port city with the help of Akatsuki spies who helped him infiltrate within in the middle of the night. The Lightning Daimyo had ordered the disorganized Kumo forces to retaliate and defend their lands, and the Kumo shinobi had obeyed the order and marched to meet Daibatsu at Kobe. But he was long gone by the time the army arrived at Kobe to find a burned city. They were again late to save the next important port city, which Daibatsu destroyed mercilessly and then fled to join Konan, who was still trying to destroy the port city of Sasebo. Kamada Dodai of Kumo had done well in defending Kumo's wealthiest city apart from the capital. For the past week, Konan had tried from direct attacks to infiltration missions but had met with failure every time. Worse, they had received alarming news of Kumo's entire army just a few hours away from Sasebo. If they came here, there was no way Konan could complete her mission. Even grave was the news of Naruto's death, and gods knew where Yahiko was with the army under his command. Utter chaos and mayhem combined with tragedy. And it always led to disasters of even greater scales. Daibatsu shivered on seeing the icy glare in Konan's ruthless eyes. I have to go back to Castle Storm. See for myself, she said with her trembling voice. But the mission, protested Daibatsu, earning a sharp glare from his friend. I will destroy Sasebo tonight and then go back. You will take command of our remaining forces and destroy the next port city before moving towards the Lightning Daimyo's capital, ordered Conan without a flinch, as if they had not lost their leader itself. But Naruto's, we are at war, Daibatsu. There is no going back now. Mika. The Akatsuki forces leader stepped into the room quickly, having already waited outside for quite a while. For once the arrogant man was somber, his all-knowing smile nowhere to be seen. If it was, he would lose his head if the look in Conan's eyes was any indication. You know what to do. We strike at night and end this once and for all, commanded Conan ruthlessly, surprising even the Akatsuki, who blinked. Are you sure, Commander? Asked Mika one last time. Conan nodded without hesitation, earning a nod from the man as he went to carry out his orders. Daibatsu whirled on her, unable to control his own disgust and horror knowing what she was about to do. Conan, no, he yelled. Faint tears were present in her eyes along with that righteous fury as she looked straight into Daibatsu's eyes. I have already lost more than 700 soldiers trying to take this city. I don't have the time or the patience to wait for Kumo's army to come and us all. Naruto could still be alive, stranded on that island, or alive, I will bring him back home, she promised ruthlessly. But, I know what I am doing, Daibatsu. I know what it will cost me, but I cannot back down for all our sakes. Naruto tried to do the right and honorable thing, look where that got him. Asked Conan sadly. Daibatsu had no answer to her rightful statement. He was surprised Naruto even agreed to listen to Konoha despite his hatred, but then again he must have done it for the sake of his deceased father and mother, for the future of his people and Ams to some extent as well. And he asked for it. No matter what Conan believed, there were too many rumors and evidences that could say otherwise. The message that had came from Azu only made the claim stronger. The White Wolf was S. And now they all, his friends and allies, were left leaderless and alone in the middle of a world war. Naruto was their sole hope of survival, and he made a mistake. A big mistake of trusting those with black hearts and powerful ambitions. It reminded Daibatsu of the bitter fact that despite his successes on the battlefield, Naruto had been a young leader. And he had been outsmarted by older ones who had played this game of power for decades. Daibatsu stared at Conan and saw her suffering in silence. Slowly but surely she had came to care for Naruto Uzumaki more than the remaining members of Domino Squad. She had seen something within that boy, befriended him. Daibatsu wasn't sure, but he had a feeling Conan had started to care for Naruto in ways more than a friend could have. She herself had never realized that fact until now, if the heartbroken look in her eyes was any proof. She needed him, needed someone to stay strong and support her as she made a difficult choice to save them all. So Daibatsu stepped forward and engulfed her in a bear hug. Conan collapsed in his strong arms, burying her head in his sea, and cried. I am with you, Conan. Till the end, he whispered, allowing a small tear to fall from his own eyes. Daibatsu gave the order that made the catapult team start the shower of barrels that soon started raining all across the town of Sasebo. The defenders retaliated in kind, with a large party charging through the gates towards the Akatsuki ships. Mika led a strong contingent of 500 Akatsuki soldiers to counter the enemy force. Many of the flying barrels were destroyed in mid-air, but hundreds more splashed all over the city. Amidst the cries of hundreds of men and women, Daibatsu watched a lone figure flying alone in the sky. Her face impassive, her blue hair flowing in the air as her large paper-white wings allowed her a clear view of the vast city beneath her. Daibatsu continued the rain of barrels, splashing the entire city with green liquid as moments later another rain fell from the skies. A rain of paper tags released by Conan that started to fall across the entire city. Kumo defenders desperately tried to destroy her attacks, but unable to counter the thousands Conan continued to release from her arms. Angel of Death. Amidst the chaos and carnage, Daibatsu felt it happen. The rain of paper tags burst into flames, revealing themselves to be exploding tags that rocked the entire city of Sasebo. Daibatsu stared at his flying friend and heard her roar. Feel pain. Sasebo exploded in green flames of hellfire. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.